I'm sorry to the Miami Hurricanes and Mario Cristobal for ever thinking that Florida State had a shot to take this team down. Listen, last week I came on here and I told you guys that Miami was going to beat Florida State in a hard-fought, close game that was going to come down to the wire, and I was completely wrong. And a lot of you Hurricanes fans, you were telling me all week long that I was underestimating the Hurricanes. I need to get over my trauma of the previous year's Hurricanes, and I need to look at this Hurricanes team separately from the previous Hurricane teams that have let me down and have led me to being such a glass half empty Miami Hurricane fan. And I'm still not fully convinced that Miami's going to go all the way, but I can't be disingenuous and not give Miami credit when credit is due. Winning on the road is tough. The majority of upsets that have occurred in college football in week 6 have happened on the road. You go on the road, no matter who you are, you could lose to anybody. We just saw what happened to Penn State and Pasadena last week. Miami could have very well have been Penn State, but with the improvements that Mario Cristobal has made to the defense, with the bunch of transfers that he has brought into the secondary, along with bringing in a new defensive coordinator with a dependable quarterback to go along with that. Look, Carson Beck is better than Cam Ward. And the reason what makes Cam Ward such a great quarterback is that he was such a gunslinger. He was willing to take risks, and sometimes those risks costed Miami some of the games that they lost it last year. Now, it wasn't all because of Cam Ward. The defense didn't do him any favors, so you understood why he took the risk that he did. But with Carson Beck, he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. And the Carson Beck that we see right now is the Carson Beck that we saw 2 years ago in 2023. Miami has a quarterback that, even if they're having an off game, they know that Carson Beck can carry them to a win. You can ask Carson Beck to throw the ball 30 plus times and he'll give you 3 touchdowns and no interceptions in the process. And he'll also complete over 70% of his passes. Carson Beck, hands down, has been the best quarterback in college football. He's been the clear front runner for the Heisman Trophy, and he's going to be the clear-cut QB1 in next year's NFL draft, and he's going to continue the trend of Miami being QBU when it comes to the transfer portal. And I never once doubted Carson Beck. I'm never going to doubt a brother from the 904. We pride JT Sports on being unbiased, but we have a little bit of bias when it comes to our 904 brethren. I saw Carson Beck play in person when he went up against my high school, and he looked as close to an NFL quarterback as you will ever see at the high school level. I have a bunch of friends, a bunch of homies that know Carson Beck, that still talk to him, that play 7-on-7 with him, that played with him on that state championship team when he was at Mandarin. So I never questioned how good Carson Beck was going to be. I always questioned if we were going to get a Mario Cristobal special. Because the Mario Cristobal specials, we saw them last year when Miami fell to Syracuse, when they fell to Georgia Tech, teams that Miami was supposed to boat race, they ended up playing down to. I thought that was going to be the case this week against Florida State. Because you know, with these rivalry games, you can never truly decide the outcome based off what you see on paper. But Miami obviously was the better team than Florida State this year. Mike Norvell does not need to be fired. Florida State didn't lose to Miami because they were outcoached. They were unprepared. They lost to Miami because they just outright were the better team. It took Mario Cristobal 4 years to build the Miami team that you see this season. And with how bad 2024 was for Florida State, it set that program back 3 years. It's going to take Mark Norvell 3-4 years to get FSU back to the level that they were at 2 years ago when they went undefeated, won the ACC, and got snubbed out of the CFP. Mario Cristobal, we've always knew that he was a great recruiter, but my concerns has always been with the game day aspect of Mario Cristobal. Can you trust him to manage the clock right in a late game situation? Can you trust him to make the right decision on fourth down, having a good field, knowing when to take the field goal, when to take the points, and when to be aggressive and go for it? This year's Miami team, I don't really have any concerns about seeing any Mario Cristobal specials, because even if Miami plays their D- game, nobody else in the ACC, other than Clemson, is talented enough to outright make Miami play or make Miami pay if they have a bad game. Similar to Texas Tech. Now, if Miami and Texas Tech were in the SEC or the Big Ten, then you would see more frequent close games. You would see a little bit more upsets if those two teams were in those conferences, because they would be going up against more teams that are near or equal in their talent level. But since Miami has such a big talent advantage over the rest of the ACC, even if they are having a game when they have 2-3 turnovers, they can still overcome that because they have so many monsters on the line of scrimmage that they can bludgeon you to death. They can run it down your throat. They can air the ball out, and their defense can completely wreck the majority of fronts that you see in the ACC. There is no team in the SEC that is talented enough to slow down Miami this year outside of Clemson. And good thing that Clemson season is kind of somewhat over, and Miami doesn't have to worry about seeing them in the ACC championship. You might as well go ahead and give Miami the ACC championship right now. I know that they've been in this conference for over 2 decades, and they've yet to win one, but this is going to be the season that the Hurricanes get their first. This is too stacked of a team to fall victim to the upset virus in the ACC this year. They're going to steamroll this conference. Miami's going to blow out everybody that they play from this point on by at least 2 touchdowns or more. They just have too many freakazoids to deal with that a lot of ACC teams just don't have the star power to keep up with. I apologize to Mario Cristobal. I apologize to the Miami Hurricanes for ever doubting how the outcome of that Florida State game was going to end up. Miami went into Doak Campbell Stadium and they gave the Seminoles the belt. There was a Category 5 hurricane this past Saturday in Doak Campbell, and they left a lot of wreckage. And I'm very impressed with this win. And from this point on, I view Miami as the number 1 team in college football. They have the best resume in the country. They beat Notre Dame. They also beat the best G5 team in college football at the moment, a Florida team that looks to somewhat have a little bit of life now. Miami is, I feel, kind of foolproof to make it to the college football playoffs, win an ACC championship, and go undefeated during the process. I don't really see any team that really can give Miami a scare outside of that road game against SMU, only because of how good of a coach Rhett Lashlee is, and he has a lot of familiarity with the South Florida area. He has a good amount of South Florida players on his roster. So I expect that to be a pretty good game. But outside of that SMU game, Miami should just completely steamroll the rest of the season from this point out until we get to the playoffs.